بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلوات ربه وسلامه على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. وبعد, to continue inshallah with the muhadhab from Ihya Ulumuddin by Hujjatul Islam Abu Hamid al-Ghazali rahimahullah ta'ala wa radi an. And we are going to start this evening from Awradun Nahar, the designated acts of worship that have been sectioned out throughout the day. And so Imam al-Ghazali, he says al-wird al-awwal, so the first wird, and we said that a wird is basically a portion, so daily acts of ritual worship, i.e. daily portions. So he says al-wird al-awwal ma bayna tulu'i as-subhi ila tulu'i ash-shams, so between the morning period and the rising of the sun. He says وَهُوَ وَقْتٌ شَرِيفٌ وَيَدُلُّ عَلَى شَرَفِهِ وَفَضْلِهِ إِقْسَامُ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى بِهِ إِذْ قَالَ وَالصُّبْحِ إِذَا تَنَفَّسَ. And so he says that this part of the day, i.e. between the start of the morning and the rising of the sun, it's the first part of the day wherein a person should have a portion of worship. And the evidence for the virtue and the excellence of this time is the ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by it, was subh. And usually we find in the Quran Allah azza wa jal swears by that which is important, was subh, wal asr, wal qalam, and so on and so forth, wal duha. He says فَأَمَّا تَرْتِيبُهُ فَإِذَا انْتَبَهَ مِنَ النَّوْمِ فَيَنْبَغِي أَنْ يَبْتَدِئَ بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى فَيَقُولُ. He says, as for the way that a person should organize this particular time, if a person wakes up from his sleep, then he should start with the dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jal, the remembrance of Allah. فَيَقُولُ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ الَّذِي أَحْيَانَا بَعْدَ مَا أَمَاتَنَا وَإِلَيْهِ النُّشُورُ. And he says, all praises to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has given us life after he has caused us to pass away. وَإِلَيْهِ النُّشُورُ, and to him is the return. And sleep, of course, is the cousin of death. Sleep is the cousin of death, and sleep is a reminder of death. And so when we wake up from our sleep, it's as if we're waking up from death. And so it's a reminder to us. He says, وَإِلَيْهِ النُّشُورُ, and to him we will return on the day of resurrection or the day when we pass away. He says, فَإِذَا فَرَغَ مِنَ الصَّلَاةِ مَعَ الْجَمَاعَةِ قَعَدَ فِي الْمَسْجِدِ إِلَى طُلُوعِ الشَّمْسِ فِي ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى. And then once a person has finished praying the salah in jama'ah, i.e. fajr, he should sit in the masjid until tulu' al-shams, until the sun rises. And he should be in a state of remembrance of Allah Azza wa Jal. And he's going to give extra detail shortly, inshallah. And of course, we have to contextualize this because many of the masajid, it's difficult to stay until tulu' al-shams. Why? Because the masajid close, because of the time that we're living in. We cannot have many masajid unfortunately open unless they are supervised due to the nature of society, etc. And so, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَسْتَطَعْتُمْ, stay in the masjid for as long as you can, and of course in accordance to your capability with that which you have to engage in of daily life. But this period here, it's a very good period for finding solace in one's life. Why? Because it's a period of quietness, of tranquility. The day has not yet started. He says, وَيَنْبَغِي أَن تَكُونَ وَظِيفَتُهُ إِلَى الطُّلُوعِ أَرْبَعَةُ أَنْوَاعٍ. And the person should try to engage in 4 types of actions whilst he is sitting in the masjid until the sun rises. The first, ad'iyah, dua. And of course there are specified dua. And today we have the adhkar, the books of adhkar, which we can turn to, and they have been organized and structured for us so we can follow along. So ad'iyah, so dua, supplication. Wa adhkar, remembrance of Allah Azza wa Jal. Wa qira'atu Qur'an, and recitation of the Qur'an. Wa tafakkur, and reflection. So reflecting on the reality of this life, reflecting on our states, reflecting on our mistakes, reflecting on how we would like to utilize our time and our day, etc. He says, Al-Wirdu Thani, so the second portion of the day, Ma bayna tulu'i shamsi ila dahwat al-nahar. So it starts with the rising of the sun, and it lasts until dahwat al-nahar, and he's going to explain to us what he means. وَأَعْنِ بِالضَّحْوَ مُنْتَصِفُ مَا بَيْنَ تُلُوعِ الشَّمْسِ إِلَى الزَّوَالِ. So the middle period between where the sun has risen and the sun is about to move from its zenith. So the middle of the morning period basically. So it's in the middle of the morning period. So when the sun rises and then when dhuhr comes in between that. And so now it would be maybe about 9 o'clock, roughly 9 o'clock perhaps, a bit earlier, a bit later. He says, so وَفِي هَذَا الرُّبْعِ مِنَ النَّهَارِ وَظِيفَتَانِ. There are two things that a person should engage in during this time period. إِحْدَاهُمَا صَلَاةُ الضُّحَى. So the first is al-duha prayer. And duha prayer, the Prophet ﷺ would pray it regularly, and there are variations to, for, or that which a person is able to pray. But duha prayer is very important. If a person can develop this habit. And it's to be prayed at home if a person has not waited in the masjid if a person has waited in the masjid. He says, الثانية في هذا الوقت الخيرات المتعلقة بالناس التي جرت بها العادات بكرة. So he says, and this is important to reflect upon, he says the second act of ritual worship, although perhaps not ritual but an act of worship, that a person should engage in during this period, i.e. the morning period, is al-khayrat al-muta'alliqa bin-nas allati jarat biha al-'adat bukratan. So the acts which are considered to be good acts, acts of goodness that people usually engage in that time in accordance to the customs and the norms of the society that a person finds himself in. He says, min iyadati marid, such as visiting a sick person, wa tashyi'i janaza, and following a janaza, so following the janaza and remaining for the burial, wa mu'awanatin ala al-birri wa taqwa, and helping someone who's trying to do good. So you come across someone who's engaged in some type of good, you try to help that person. Wa huduri majlisi ilm, and also attending the gatherings of knowledge. وَمَا يَجْرِي مَجْرَاهُ مِنْ قَضَاءِ حَاجَةٍ لِمُسْلِمٍ, and anything which is of a similar kind of action, i.e. helpful and considered to be an act of taqwa, which is in the aid of a Muslim. And we mentioned in the khutbah, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, وَكَانَ اللَّهُ فِي عَوْنِ عبده ما كان العبد في عون أخيه أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. He said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in the aid of his slave, his servant, so long as that person is in the aid of his brother or sister in Islam. And so being in the aid of our brothers and sisters in Islam is something which brings about barakah. It brings about Allah's aid and Allah's help in the dunya before the akhirah. And you will see the impacts of this when you are in need of Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah will send people to you. Allah will send help to you. Especially when it seems that there are no doors open for you and you need help, Allah will send people and Allah will send help at that time. If you are in the aid of others. And so when you see someone who needs help, help them. And you will see that help come back to you. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sunnah. It's the sunnah of Allah on this earth. And of course, we hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses it to provide us with aid on Yawm al-Qiyamah, on the day wherein we need help. And the only help that we can be given is Allah's help. He says, وَمِن ضَحْوَةِ النَّهَارِ إِلَى الزَّوَارِ فِي هَذَا الْوَقْتِ أَمْران. And now from about 9, 10 o'clock until dhuhr comes in. Two things that a person should engage in. Number one, أحدهما الاشتغال بالكسب, being busy with earning one's living. Earning a living, اليد العليا خير من اليد السفلى كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام, that the giving hand is better than the receiving hand, meaning the one who is independent is better than the one who is dependent. And a means of acquiring independence in Islam is to work, is to provide for oneself and for one's family. And this is from taqwa. It's from taqwa. And today we have a misunderstanding amongst many where a person assumes himself to be practicing and pious and he is jobless. Where a person thinks that it's pious to have a beard and a thobe and to pray, and you're going and you're signing on and receiving benefits. No, that's not from piety. If you are receiving benefits because you are currently unable to provide for your family, for yourself, but you're in the process of looking for something, you're trying to earn a living, but you're unable to find anything in that process, okay. But outside of that process, no. A man who becomes dependent upon the welfare state has lost some of his manliness, some of his manhood. And we should not become dependent upon welfare. the Prophet ﷺ, he said, اليد العليا خير من اليد السفلى, أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام, the giving hand is better than the receiving hand. And we have, unfortunately, Muslims who are happy to send their wives to take benefits from the government. And this is contrary to being a man. It goes against the thaqafah, the culture of Islam and the culture of being a man. It's wrong. And so a man should be earning his own living in this time. He's saying in the morning time, that's the time to go out and to earn a living. He says, وَتَدْبِيرُ الْمَعِيشَةِ, and looking after, organizing one's affairs, that which I need to be in check and in order to live in this dunya, I should be doing this in the morning time. وَحُضُورِ السُّوقِ, and likewise attending to the marketplace if I need to attend to the marketplace. Buying that which I need in the morning so that I don't have to be busy with it later on in the evening, etc. He says, وَلَا يَنْسَى ذِكْرُ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى فِي جَمِيعِ أَشْغَالِهِ, and a person should not forget to be busy in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throughout the process that he engages in the morning, i.e. whether it's shopping, whether it's providing, whether it's working. And the dhikr of Allah here, it can mean literal dhikr of Allah with the tongue, or to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to fear Allah azza wa jal when engaging in these things. Why? Because if I'm in the marketplace, I'm going to see haram. If I'm earning a living, there's the possibility of earning haram, and so on and so forth. And so remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, الثاني, i.e. the second type of action that a person should engage in between the dahwatul nahar and the zawal. So in between the middle of the morning until the sun moves from the middle of the sky, al-qaylula. So if a person has earned their living for the day, for the week, if a person has taken care of the affairs that need to be taken care of, i.e. he has his day and his week in order, that which he needs to do of that day, then al-qaylula. And qaylula is like a short nap, a midday nap. And the Sahaba, the Tabi'een, the earlier generations of Islam, they would take this nap prior to Dhuhr. What has become the practice in many Muslim countries is after Dhuhr. And so that's actually contrary to the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. The sunnah of qaylula is prior to Dhuhr, not after Dhuhr. And when a person has this nap after Dhuhr, it can be problematic for one's health. Why? Because usually a person eats lunch and then goes to sleep, and that's not good for the body. It should be before Dhuhr, and it was a short nap, and there is barakah in that nap. But again, it depends on the customs and the culture of the community that we're living in. Here we don't nap before Dhuhr. Why? Because usually it's a time for work. And also, look, what he's saying here about working for those few hours in the morning shows you the way that they would earn a living and the amount of time they would spend on dunya and the amount of time they would have free in comparison to the society that we live in today. And perhaps a lot of mental health issues have developed due to the type of rat race society that we live in, which we're not designed for as humans, especially in the bigger cities. He says, وَهِيَ سُنَّةٌ يُسْتَعَانُ بِهَا عَلَى قِيَامِ اللَّيْلِ. Al-qaylula, so the post or the pre-dhuhr nap, is a sunnah يُسْتَعَانُ بِهَا عَلَى قِيَامِ اللَّيْلِ, a sunnah which is used to help one pray qiyamul layl. How so? Because it gives you that extra bit of energy, and there's the barakah of it. He says, كَمَا أَنَّ التَّسَحُّرُ سُنَّةٌ يُسْتَعَانُ بِهَا عَلَى صِيَامِ النَّهَارِ. Just like suhoor prior to fajr is sunnah which a person utilizes in aid of fasting during the day, the qaylula is a sunnah which a person utilizes to aid him or her in praying the night. He says, وَيَنْبَغِي أَن يَتَنَبَّهَ قَبْلَ الزَّوَالِ بِقَدْرِ الْإِسْتِعْدَادِ لِلصَّلَاةِ. And a person should wake up from this qaylula prior to dhuhr with a time which allows him or her to get ready for the salah. And so it's not that I sleep until I feel better. No, I sleep and then I wake up with enough time to get ready for salah and go and pray in jama'ah. He says, Al-Wirdu al-Rabi', the fourth portion of the day, ما بين الزوال إلى الفراغ من صلاة الظهر وراتبته وهو أقصر أوراد النهار وأفضلها. He says, the fourth portion of the day is between the zawal, so when dhuhr comes in, until one has prayed dhuhr with jama'ah and its rawatib. He says, it's the shortest period of the day, i.e. when you've portioned your day out in accordance to this structure, and it's the best of those time periods. He says, فَإِذَا فَرَغَ مِنْ جَوَابِ الْمُؤَذِّنِ فَلْيَقُمْ إِلَى إِحْيَاءِ مَا بَيْنَ الْأَذَانِ وَالْإِقَامَةِ. Once a person has responded to the adhan of the mu'adhin, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, etc. You copy the mu'adhin. Once a person has engaged in this and the adhan has finished, he says you give life to that part of the day, i.e. between the adhan and the iqamah, with the rawatib prayers. He says, فَهُوَ وَقْتُ الْإِذْهَارِ الَّذِي أَرَادَهُ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى بِقَوْلِهِ وَحِينَ تُظْهِرُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when speaking about dhikr and so on and so forth, says وَحِينَ تُظْهِرُونَ, at that time, وَحِينَ تُظْهِرُونَ, when you enter into the time of dhuhr. He says وَلْيُصَلِّ فِي هَذَا الْوَقْتِ أَرْبَعَ رَكَعَاتٍ وَلْيُطَوِّلْ هَذِهِ الرَّكَعَاتِ ثُمَّ لْيُصَلِّ بَعْدَ الظُّهْرِ رَكَعَتَيْن. And so prior to Salatul Dhuhr, a person should pray 4 raka'at, and they should make these raka'at long, but not long that he misses the iqamah, no, long that it fills up that space, and then 2 raka'at after, so raka'atan after dhuhr as well. Then he says, Al-Wirdul Khamis, the 5th section of the day, when we portion our day off, Ma ba'da dhalika ila al-asr. So from the time that you've prayed your ratibah of dhuhr, the voluntary prayer of dhuhr, up until asr. He says, وَيُسْتَحَبُّ فِيهِ الْعُكُوفُ فِي الْمَسْجِدِ مُشْتَغِلًا بِالذِّكْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ أَوْ فُنُونِ الْخَيْرِ. He says, what is recommended is that a person stays in the masjid until asr. And if you go to many Muslim countries, you'll find this is the case, especially in the major masajid that they refer to in Arabic as al-jawami'. So a big masjid is called al-jami', and a small masjid maybe a masjid or a musalla. And the jami' is the masjid wherein Jum'ah is prayed, because the people, they come together in the masjid. It's called al-jami'. And so if you go to some of the big masajid in the Muslim world, you'll find that people stay in the masjid until asr. And usually there are lessons taking place, Quran halaqat and so on and so forth, especially if you go to the Haramain. Al-Haramain, Masjid al-Nabawi alayhi salam, and the Masjid al-Haram, Mecca. He says, what should a person do when sitting in the masjid between the time that the ratibah finishes and asr? A person should be busy in dhikr, remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wa salah, and voluntary prayers, aw funun al-khayr, or the various acts of righteousness and goodness that a person can engage in the masjid. He says, وَيَكُونْ فِي انْتِظَارِ الصَّلَاةِ مُعْتَكِفًا مِنْ فَضَائِلِ الْأَعْمَالِ انتظار الصلاة بعد الصلاة. He says ويكون في انتظار الصلاة معتكفا فمن فضائل الأعمال. Sorry, he says, and he will be in the masjid معتكفا. And the issue of i'tikaf here, you can do i'tikaf in the masjid with your intention, even if it's just for a moment. So when a person comes to pray dhuhr, if they're intending to stay until asr, they say in their heart, I'm here mu'takifan, I'm here to do i'tikaf, i.e. to be alone with Allah Azza wa Jal and to worship Him. And he says, فَمِن فَضَائِلِ الْأَعْمَالِ انتظار الصلاة بعد الصلاة. From the best of actions is to wait for one prayer after another, if there is nothing that a person has to attend to during that time. Then he says, فَإِنْ كَانَ بَيْتُهُ أَسْلَمْ لِدِينِهِ وَأَجْمَعْ لِهَمِّهِ فَالْبَيْتُ أَفْضَلْ مِنْ حَقِّهِ أو فِي حَقِّهِ. He says, if his house is better for him in his deen, and it's better for him in his ability to focus, then it's better for him to stay in his house, i.e. he prays the salah, does his ratibah, goes home, and then he engages in dhikr, engages in recitation of the Quran, engages in the various acts of ritual worship that are virtuous, until Asr comes in, and then he goes to the masjid for Asr. And when will it be better for a person's deen? For example, if it's a masjid where there is a lot of fitna that takes place, a lot of groups or politics, and I'm going to be exposed to backbiting here or backbiting there, or this issue here, this issue there, then khalas, I go to my house, it's better for me. Or if it's, for example, a masjid where they're very lax when it comes to free mixing, for example, and I'm worried that I'm going to be exposed to that which is going to be difficult for me to forbear. I stay in my house, whatever it might be, just examples. He says, Al-Wirdu Sadis, إذا دخل وقت العصر وهو الذي أقسم الله تعالى به فقال والعصر هذا أحد معنيي الآية وهو العشي المذكور في قوله وعشية وليس في هذا الورد صلاة إلا 4 ركعات بين الأذان والإقامة. He says the 6th portion of the day wherein a person engages in ritualistic acts, i.e. a person has portioned their day up, so the 6th portion of the day is from Asr and it lasts until the sun basically reddening in the sky. We're going to come to that inshallah. And he says this period of the day is the portion of the day wherein Allah has sworn by it, wal asr. And it's also one of the meanings, the interpretations for wa'ashiyya in when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the adhkar and the from the signs of Allah's creation and so on and so forth. He says وَعَشِيًّا, and one of the meanings is that it is the Asr period. And he says وَلَيْسَ فِي هَذَا الْوِرْدِ صَلَاةٌ, there is no ritual act of worship in this period of time of salah. So a person should not be engaging in salah during this time إِلَّا 4 رَكَعَاتٍ بَيْنَ الْأَذَانِ وَالْإِقَامَةِ, except for 4 rak'at between the adhan and the iqamah of Asr. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, and this is something again, we spoke about the barakah of being in the aid of our brothers and sisters in Islam. There is also an act which you will see the barakah of it in your life, which is رحم الله امرأ صلى قبل العصر 4 أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. May Allah have mercy, or Allah will have mercy upon the one who prays 4 rak'at before Asr. Try it yourself and you will see the barakah in your life inshallah. Praying 4 rak'at before Asr in the masjid. Come to the masjid at the adhan or before the adhan. As soon as the adhan goes off, pray 4 rak'at before Asr and you will see the barakah in your life bi'idhnillah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy upon all of us. He says إِذَا اصْفَرَّتِ الشَّمْسِ الْوِرْدُ السَّابِعِ, the 7th portion of the day, if the sun reddens in the sky. And he says what does this mean? بِأَن تَقْرُبَ مِنَ الْأَرْضِ, that the sun is about to set. So the sun, it comes close to the earth, the horizon, you can see it. He says وَهُوَ مِثْلُ الْوَرْدِ الْأَوَّلِ, and this portion is like the first portion of the day, i.e. you should be engaged in this portion of the day in adhkar, in qira'atul Quran, in dua, in tafakkur, because it's similar to the first portion. The first portion of the day, he says, من طلوع الفجر إلى طلوع الشمس لأنه قبل الغروب كما أن ذلك قبل الطلوع وهو المراد بقوله تعالى فسبحان الله حين تمسون وحين تصبحون. Because the first period, it's before the sunrise, and this period is before the sunset. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says in Surah Al-Rum again, فسبحان الله حين تمسون وحين تصبحون. And so subhanallah, all praises to Allah when you reach the evening time, or as you are entering into the evening and as you enter into the morning period. And this time again, it's a time which is mubarak, it's a blessed time. And if you can, be in the masjid before Maghrib by an hour, half an hour, and utilize that time, dhikr, Quran. And you know, there is an issue that we have in our day and age where we have mental fatigue or being mentally overwhelmed. You know, especially you hear men talk about this issue that they need time alone, time away, they don't have enough time. If you practice the sunnah, you will have time. Before the sunrise, stay in the masjid, or stay up in a state of reflection by yourself, adhkar, dua, and also before Maghrib as the sun sets. But in order to practice this properly, you have to put your phone away, or you have to turn your phone, the data off, or something of that sort. Be alone, you and Allah Azza wa Jal in the masjid, and you will find the solace and the tranquility that comes from this practice. And again, it's a practice you will find in many Muslim countries, in the jawami', in the big masajid. Go to Al-Haramain and you will see people, they are there all day. From Dhuhr, they're there until Isha, and they're engaged in these actions. He says, ثُمَّ يُجِيبُ الْمُؤَذِّنِ, or he says, sorry, فإذا وَلَتَغْرُبُ الشَّمْسِ عَلَيْهِ وَهُوَ فِي الْإِسْتِغْفَارِ, and a person should be in a state of istighfar as the sun is setting. فإذا سمع الأذان قال اللهم هذا إقبال ليلك وإدبار نهارك وأصوات دعاتك. And if he hears the adhan, he should say, oh Allah, this is the coming of your night and the going of your day and the sounds of your callers. Du'at is the plural of da'i. And the mu'adhin is a da'i ila Allah, a da'i ila salah. Why? Because he's calling people to prayer, calling people to Allah. He says, ثم يجيب المؤذن ويشتغل بصلاة المغرب وبالغروب قد انتهت أوراد النهار. And he says, and then he busies himself in answering the adhan of Maghrib, and then he should pray the Maghrib Salah with the Jama'ah, and then with that, the portions of the day, the ritual acts which have been portioned off during the day, come to an end, and the night time enters. And he says, الورد الأول إذا غربت الشمس صلى المغرب واشتغل بإحياء ما بين العشاءين فآخر هذا الورد عند غيبوبة الشفق. And we'll stop there inshallah, and we'll continue from this part next week inshallah, so that we have a distinction between the awrad of the nahar and the awrad of the layl. وصلى اللهم على سيدنا محمد.